Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first customer success webinar. This one is called SalesScreen GameMaster 101. And I am Kaylin Kless. I am a customer success manager at SalesScreen, and I will be sharing some tips and tricks with you today. The reason that we have for this series is that we have a lot of admins who are familiar with their way around SalesScreen as an app. They know what buttons to click to get into a competition, or to set their targets, but they're ready to level up and think about SalesScreen as more than just an app that you press buttons on, and more of a holistic tool that you can use to motivate your entire team. So we're looking at ways that you're building your competitions in a thoughtful way, building a program of competitions that's going to foster long-term goals. We're looking at ways to set up your entire environment so that we are rewarding people in between those moments of competition, making sure that we're able to keep all of our teams focus on the most important metrics and the things that they need to be doing to hit them, so that we have a more holistic view of gamification, because gamification we're just using as a way to motivate, to create a better team with greater cohesion, that really loves coming in and doing their work with the people around them. So yeah, we are not here to talk about an app. We are here to talk about your team. But that being said, please feel free to ask questions if you need to in the chat, including technical questions. Don't feel like if you have just gotten started with SalesScreen and you're still learning all of those things that I said, like where to press to get a competition, where to start a new achievement, still watch this, still get a lot of inspiration, and then refer back to it as you're learning where to go. And we'll be happy to help you technically every step along the way. We're just going to keep this discussion a little bit more about that high level design. So today we'll be discussing specifically breaking top goals into manageable initiatives, encouraging individual ownership of tasks amongst your team so that you don't feel like you have to be on everyone every minute in order to see the work not only getting done, but actual progress being made and greater growth happening. And choosing the right gamification strategies for every stage of your campaigns, because it's very easy once you've gotten into SalesScreen, you know how to make your competition, to use the same setup you started with when you first got on the platform. But we need to be responsive and dynamic to where we are in the sales cycle, where we are in the year, and just what's going on with your individual team members. So we'll talk a little bit about competition specifically, and choosing the right ones for the job. So to get to that first one, we're going to talk a little bit about breaking your top goals into manageable initiatives. So this is something that you're probably doing in your targets a lot. I'm guessing most people already have revenue targets of some sort in your SalesScreen. But there's some things that we should keep in mind when setting them. One of those is individual goals versus company goals. And a lot of times you will have a company goal of, say 100,000, and maybe that means you've got a team of 4. You want to break that down into 25,000 each. Just, I'm keeping the math really easy. We don't necessarily want that the whole to be greater than the sum of its parts of our team targets. So when you have a company goal of, say, 100,000, maybe make individual goals for whatever time period you're using 30,000 as opposed to 25,000, so that no team member can make you lose your company goal by falling short in any particular part of their period. Another thing to keep in mind when setting your targets is general market trends. So it is easy to copy your targets from month to month in SalesScreen. And if your targets stay the same from each month or each quarter, that makes a lot of sense. But it is a good idea to look at your overall market trends. For example, if you're selling property insurance, maybe focus more of your targets into the spring and summer and put some higher value there. That's when most real estate deals are taking place. So think about basically your past data will be able to tell you a lot about that, and the trends in your own industry will also be able to help you think a little more critically about just dividing your targets down from a whole year versus getting a little bit more specific and granular about when most of that activity is happening. And then, as mentioned, touched on it briefly before, your past performance individually is going to be different from the overall trends of your market in individual ways. So use your own data to further tailor your predictions each month. Go back into your dashboard boards from the previous quarter, the previous year, and see how your team has been doing in the past and use that to set your goals. I would particularly encourage activity flows and activity flow widgets if you don't have those, which can break up a sales cycle into, say, a call, a meeting, and then a sale, and you can see what your hit rate is going from each of those steps. And then when you look back at your past data, you see what your typical rate is, and that can help you set those early funnel targets, because usually you have a number in mind for, say, your revenue, but if you know that it takes a certain number of demo meetings to close a sale, then you know that you can work backwards from the numbers that you have in the past and say, okay, I know it takes, 10 calls to get to one person who will sit down in a demo meeting with me. So then you know what your goal is, and you can use your own past data to tell you what that should be. And that brings me to my last point, which is don't neglect the top of the funnel in your target setting. We do have a lot of accounts where people will put in their revenue goals for the month, for the quarter, for the year, et cetera. And then don't think quite so much about setting targets on the calls that it takes to get there, the quotes sent that you need to have people look over that maybe won't get approved, things like that. So make sure that once you know how much early funnel activity you need by looking at your own past, that you're setting those targets in SalesScreen so that you can set achievements on those things, because it's very easy to just encourage the sale. It's very easy to only encourage the end result, but where people tend to get a little bit burnt out is just having to cold call every day, or having to go back and forth with one particular client and sending a new quote or a new demo to follow something up. That's where you want to make sure that you're putting achievements that happen regardless of a competition period, so that that's being recognized every day, and make your life a little bit easier so that you can see it. You'll see it popping up on your feed when your team is hitting these goals and hitting their achievements. So take advantage of those targets and metrics, like I said, and some ways to do that are to set company target countdowns and make sure that those are visible in slides and putting them on your playlists on the screen so people can see, okay, as a group, we're 75% to our target for this month or this quarter. And then also set by team. So if you have your team targets together, you can set an achievement. It does not have to be on just one individual person's achievements. You can set a target for a team achievement so that people can be working together, and then also have those individual target achievements so that, again, those milestones are being celebrated, even if you can't take the time out of your day to reach out to each individual person that is really killing it, that they've made it to their goal, they've made it past their goal in terms of, maybe clients met with or quotes sent out, but they'll be getting that recognition all throughout the year. And again, use the activity flows. I can't say it enough. It's not just something that you can put on your dashboards, but you can also have leaderboards based on your activity flows that can be shared up on screen. So you know who's doing the best at actually moving from one part of the sales funnel to the next. And you can also set competitions on those as well to reward that closure, that movement from one part of the sales funnel to the next, and encourage that hit rate to go up. And then if you don't have enough of this historical data for personal analysis, I'm doing a lot of encouraging of people looking backwards to see their own personal trends. Remember that you can upload historical data in reports from Excel, and that might give you more to work with if you haven't been in SalesScreen for very long, and I highly encourage it. So now, getting into the meat and bones, this is one of my most frequently heard pain points when I'm talking with clients, is that they feel like they have to do all of the cheerleading, they have to do all the reminding, and it's very hard to remind individuals to take ownership of their own tasks in a way. And I find that frequently this really just comes down to visibility for your team. If they don't feel like they know what success looks like, how to get there, and how it will be rewarded, it can be very hard to make this happen by just every once in a while throwing a message into your feed, reminding people to keep going. So let's talk a little bit more about that and what that visibility can look like specifically in SalesScreen. So you want to make sure, like I said, that it's easy to understand what success looks like. That can be done in the form of target progression widgets, which is why I put so much emphasis on choosing your targets wisely when you're first doing your setup. Remember that we do have a mobile app where you can have leaderboards and KPI widgets so that even if you have a large remote team or a team that tends to be on the go a lot, they can keep that top of mind. If you have scorecards, I would definitely go through, make sure that all of your KPIs are weighted appropriately, that you're pushing the things that matter most. And that might involve customizing for individual teams. So for example, if you have an inbound team and an outbound team, maybe calls aren't quite so important to that inbound team. They might not even be a line item on your scorecard, but they're going to be very heavily weighted for an outbound team. So that's something to keep in mind. If you've made one scorecard, take a really close look at it and make sure that it is appropriate for everyone who's working, and that if it's not, that maybe it needs to be split out team by team a little bit more. Another thing to keep in mind in terms of making sure people know what is success is just making sure that you have achievements that are hitting your actual their target, and then also what exceeding the target looks like. So how much more above and beyond is reasonable for people to go? Is it reasonable to expect a 125% target achievement on some of these metrics? At least sometimes that might be something that you can add in and give people something to shoot for beyond just completing their target, because then it starts to feel like just, okay, I've checked that off the box and people move on to something else. But if you are trying to encourage that push for more, have multiple stages of your achievements. And that comes back to the path to success. Make sure that you also have partial completion targets, partial completion of targets as achievements for especially for longer term goals like hitting sales revenue, so that people can have that little spark of motivation like, oh, okay, I don't feel like I've done much, but actually, according to this achievement, I'm 25% of the way to all of my closed won deals. That's not too bad, actually. And then next, 50%. 75%, and it keeps people going. Then if you have access to coaching, which we definitely recommend, make sure that you're having regular coaching sessions. Even if you don't have your coaching sessions in SalesScreen, having check-ins on performance metrics and blockers on a regular basis. So that doesn't just mean really frequently. Sometimes it can't be really frequently, but as long as it's predictable, it's regular, people know when the next time they're going to talk to their team leader is. That can be really helpful in terms of making sure that you're not being getting a lot of random questions throughout the week, because if people know they have a coaching session with you, maybe that will actually free up your day a little bit more to focus on what you need to focus on, and then hold those questions all in one spot, all in a place where you're just aligning on targets and attainment. And I recommend that for everyone, even people who feel very busy, because if you feel too busy to have coaching sessions, then imagine how busy your team feels trying to get all of these things done. Imagine how difficult that is for them to reach out to you if they know you're that busy. So just having that dedicated time, even if it can't be once a week, even if it's more like every other week, once a month, to really sit down, look at just how somebody's doing, and being able to look at the numbers together and say, all right, what's causing the issue here? How can I help you? That can make people feel a lot more open to trying new things and sharing their genuine thoughts. And then last but not least, you want to make sure that people know how that success, that once they've attained it, will be recognized, how it will be celebrated, how it will be rewarded. So first of all, if you don't already have personalized celebration videos for all your team, that tends to be the first thing that people do. But if you don't, make it happen. You can even set them for your team first to get them started. I find sometimes people won't change a default celebration, but if you give them a new song, it'll remind them that they can make something really personal of their own, even if they end up changing some victory song that you picked for them off of YouTube. So that's a good way to give people a nudge. Then we come back to just being the leader uh, in order to get people to follow your example. So make sure that that you're endorsing your team for those little on the spot things that aren't necessarily captured by a target achievement. But if you see somebody's putting in the extra hours every night, making a few more calls, really leading that push, the endorsement is a good way to call that out and make sure other people say, oh, hey, when Sarah stayed and made a last few calls and managed to go over her goal a few days in a row, maybe you see a streak achievement. That's something that people notice. Oh, hey, management takes notice of that. And then that becomes more of the company culture. Also, make sure that they know that they can give endorsements to each other, and you can get really meta with that. You can endorse frequent endorsers as long as they're endorsing for things that are actually helpful. But if you see somebody who's really good at recognizing others on their team, um, make that something that you recognize. And then you've created a culture where uh, wins are celebrated. People know that they're going to get those pats on the back from not just their manager, but their team when they're going the extra mile. Then lastly, make sure that you have your activities and your achievements and your competition prizes appropriately weighted and that they're appealing. So for high value activities, you can give a coins bonus just for completing a sale, for example. That's not something everybody does. Some people are handling it separately through bonuses or whatnot. But you can go into your coin setup and rewards and make sure that some of those high value activities do have a bonus just for completing them. If not, you can also just, again, set achievement badges on certain targets, on personal bests, on achieving more one week than you did the previous week. So that's worth going through and seeing where you can encourage your most prioritized metrics. For your achievements, I do suggest having points bonuses on them, at least the high value ones, maybe not your 25% of the way there achievement, but definitely when you hit a target or exceed a target, it's nice for that achievement to come with a little coins bonus. And like I said before, endorsing when you notice a high streak, that's not something that you are necessarily going to do all the time, but definitely get people focused on their achievement badges, to get people focused on what their team is doing if you're having trouble getting people to adopt right away. And then for competition success, make sure your custom prizes and the things in the reward shop are things that people like. That sounds really obvious, but if you haven't seen any requests for rewards in a while, even though people have coins, that might be a sign that things are getting a little bit stale, that people want to see something new. And the good thing about this is you can just directly ask people, hey, what would you like to see in the reward shop? You can also deputize a member of your team to design rewards and manage the reward shop so that that can be something a little bit separate as long as they know what the budget is. And you need to keep in mind that not everything in the reward shop needs to be of monetary value. We've seen a lot of success with companies that offer just FaceTime with an exec. And that can be something that's really meaningful to people who are trying to grow their career. There's also little things you can do like, hey, if you cash in for this reward, you can have, an early leave on Friday. And maybe that really helps somebody out with something that they want to make with their family, some event at home. And those things add up and they matter and they feel special in a way because it's not just more money, because people can find other ways to do that often there's bonuses, there's other things, but those intangible things can really make a difference. Now we come to choosing the right gamification strategies for every stage of your campaign, and this is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time, because this is where it gets hard. It becomes like being a bit of it's being a cruise director. It's trying to find new and engaging ways to keep things fun week after week, month after month. So when we come back to why we choose the types of competitions we choose and the different types of gamification elements, it can make it a little bit easier to think about. So I'm going to bring you back to, this might feel a little bit like school, but if you remember for writing essays, the 5 key questions: who, what, when, where, and why. This can help you with your competition design as well. In terms of who, we're thinking about who are the players involved, and we're going to get more deeply into all of these in a moment, but some things to think about broadly are how many people are participating in this competition, what are their roles on your team, and what are their player types, which is something that is super fun and I will get to in a moment. But basically that's just their playing style, their way of engaging with the world, what motivates them. In terms of your what KPIs are actually being measured. That's going to affect your gameplay. So if it's high or low volume, that might change what win conditions you have. What stage of the sales funnel you're trying to motivate will also change things as well. When is the competition happening? That's not just in terms of your start time, but your duration, how long you want each competition to run. It tends to make more sense to have longer competitions for parts of the sales funnel that are towards the end, like closed sales or final quotes generated, and smaller time competitions for early funnel where you're just trying to get a lot of data in there. Like if you're doing cold calls, that's a great time for a 1-day blitz. Where it seems obvious, but is everyone going to be in the office? Do you have people who are work from home? Do you have a combination and you need to find a way to engage both sets of people? This is another thing to keep in mind. And then lastly, why? Because there's probably more reasons than just I'm trying to lift this metric. Are you trying to encourage CRM adoption? Are you finding people are not logging meetings? Maybe it's time to make a competition that's just based on booking meetings so that people remember to put it into Salesforce if that's been a pain point. Are you trying to foster community? That's going to change how you pair people together in teams. Are you trying to prevent burnout? That's going to change how easy you want it to be to reach the top of the competition or achieve some sort of success. It might be all of the above. So that's things you might need to think about as you're planning not just one competition, but hopefully several within any given chunk of time in your calendar. So we're going to jump in to a few little pro tips and fun details on all of these questions, and then put it all together and think about what does a gamification program for about a quarter look like. So in terms of who, you probably know what teams you're in charge of, you know who you're going to be inviting. So I'm going to focus on one of our special interest topics, which is player types and how each individual person on your team is motivated based on their own personality, their own experiences. So statistics say you most likely have socialites dominating your team. This is a player type who is very invested in their role in the group, that they want to see what everyone else is doing. They want to make sure what they are doing is being seen. And they're going to be people that you need to make sure are seen in very public ways. So these are people who are going to be invested in the feed. These are going to be people who are invested in seeing their names on the leaderboards. For the killers are as well, but you're going to want everyone to be able to see each other and what they're doing. Coming back to the killers, these are highly competitive and self-motivated people. You might think you don't need to do too much for them, and sometimes that's true, but this is where we come back to that visibility, being on the leaderboards and competitions that reward like a top performer and make sure that they know that they're being seen and are going to get a good prize for it. And then smaller percentage, you have some explorers and achievers on your team. So explorers enjoy creative problem solving, finding new ways to do things. These are people who might be motivated by putting one-time achievements out there. So, achievements that are only eligible for 1 month. If you have a special initiative, you might want to put a new activity type just for that special initiative, and then they can only get that achievement in January, and then it's gone. Achievers are similar in that they want to keep hitting those milestones and discoveries, but they're going to feel a little bit more comfortable knowing the exact steps to success. So think about those target progressions that we talked about. Make sure that you have achievements where you can hit individual milestones leading up to a target and exceeding it as well, so that people can see that checked off. This is all something that you want to keep in mind as you're picking your gamification program. So your what? Your KPIs that you are trying to measure with your competition. This is largely about choosing the right tool for the job. It's easy to just pick the competitions that you like the best or that you're the most used to, but it's worth thinking a little bit more critically about what you're trying to do specifically and how that might affect your gameplay. So for example, if your chosen KPI is something that comes in rapid fire, simpler gameplay is going to be best. So if you have the dice roll competition or gift swap where you have to actually click in and do something in the competition every time a record is submitted, that might be a little bit difficult. So rapid fire probably works best for a standard competition dynamic that lasts one day. Just keep that blitz going for things like calls. But then by contrast, more complex games can spice up longer term goals where there can be big breaks in between each new record submitted, like again, like a meeting, a final quote sent, even a sale. That is a good place to use your more complex games, like a gift swap competition where everyone can open a prize and then either steal somebody's prize or open a new prize of their own every time they submit a record. And that's a good thing to keep in mind, is how are people actually going to complete these tasks and complete this competition. Make sure that the team has the tools they need for the results you want. So if you have a final sales competition going on, but you look and realize that people don't have enough opportunity in the pipeline to hit their goals for that competition, that's going to be a bit demoralizing, and it's you can't squeeze blood from a turnip. So it might be better to switch your metric to an activity earlier on in the sales funnel. Then lastly, are you competing on a metric where different teams or individuals have very different outputs? That is something that can be a little bit discouraging if you're somebody who, either because of your experience level or just the nature of your role in the company, if you're mostly taking outbound versus inbound opportunities, that can severely change what you're expected to output on a given metric. So that is where it might be better to have a custom team competition so that everyone is working together in a way that is balanced, where you can put different people of different experience levels or outputs together. Or a scorecard competition. If you have scorecards enabled, then everyone's just competing based on how high they scored for their benchmarks, which, like we said, should be very unique and tailored to each person. Now we're going to come to when. I'm not going to tell you exactly when you're starting your next competition, but what I am going to tell you is what things tend to work in terms of duration and the time of the week to start your competition. We've done some internal data ourselves, and we've found that definitely by a long shot, shorter competitions tend to increase KPIs more. This is probably because once something is going on for too long, it fades into the background a little bit. So those longer term competitions, they're great for tracking top performers and rewarding them. It's not that they fall away entirely, but they tend to fade into the background in a way that having just a 1-day blitz or a 2 to 3 day competition, or maybe a 2-week initiative, but with one of your more complicated competitions where there's gift swapping or a bracket, so people are actually coming head to head in new combinations every few days. That's when to use the longer competitions, is when you have something where people have a chance to track each other and really use those use the time in between each record. But for most things, we found that a blitz is a really great way to get people's attention, as long as you are making sure people are aware of that blitz and celebrating it. There's also success rates can vary by day, and we found that the middle of the week is the best time to have these competitions. So when you're choosing your blitz, probably put it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. That's when people are back into the swing of things. Wednesday is nice because people tend to feel like they're getting a little bit worn down, but pumping people back up on a Wednesday can be really, really great. Mondays are a little bit less successful just because people are just coming back. Sometimes they don't even realize the competition has started. So give people a chance to get into the swing of things before you have a targeted blitz like that, and make sure, crucially, that there is time to publicize that competition and that people know it's coming. Where this seems, like I said, obvious, but there's a few tips and tricks depending on the specifics of where your team is located. So if you're in office, great. There's already slides that come with each competition. Make sure that you are publishing them to your playlists and feeds. But there are for longer competitions, especially for the announcement afterwards, people have found ways to spice these up with like prize grab bags that are given live if you're not doing coins competitions. We had a team that rolled out a red carpet out in front of their screen just to make it the biggest possible event. So make it feel like a party. We're trying to make it more positive, more fun, make it more fun to do the things that people already need to do. If you've got a lot of remote workers, you'll want to keep them involved. Frequent competition chat activity from either their teammates or management is good. Keep in mind that when you go to a competition, there is a chat by the side of the screen. You can talk to each other, you can egg each other on, and you can tag each other in that chat, which is really good for getting people who you can't, tap on the shoulder right there in office and say, hey, how's it going? Are you pulling in, into the team competition? What do you've got planned? Do you have any outreach goals? And then, as always, hype up your competitions with posts leading up to the opening. I don't know why that got cut off, but make sure that people know when it's coming, so that there's a chance to get psyched. If you're having, say, an outreach competition, people might already have some ideas in mind if they know it's coming. And then lastly, why? So obviously, we all want to improve KPIs, but specifically, what are we trying to do in our dynamic? What are we trying to do with our teams, and why this metric right now? Let's talk about a few things to keep in mind here. So if you're looking, for instance, to speed things up and get more records in faster, you could try a King of the Hill competition, which is basically once I set a record down, when I submit a record, I'm going to have the clock running on me, and I want to build the most time where I am the last person to have submitted an activity. And then when somebody else submits, then the clock goes to them, and they are the most recent person to submit that activity, and so on and so forth. By the end of the competition, we count up how much time you have spent being the most recent person to submit that activity. So that can encourage a little bit more rapid fire work on things that have started to drag. You can also make a standard competition into a race by setting goals for each player, whether that's individual goals based on what their expected output is, or just the same goal for everyone, and then make the win condition first to goal rather than when the time is over. And that really encourages the speed for obvious reasons. The first person to hit the goal can win, or the first 2 or 3 people if you have multiple winners. If you're looking to motivate middle performers, try introducing some elements of chance. We have the lottery competition, which is really popular. There's also the lucky competition, which allows everyone to basically roll the dice on every record they submit to have a chance to increase the value of that record, at least in terms of the competition. So it's something that can make people feel like they have a chance, even if you have 2 top performers who tend to really kill it on every, revenue leaderboard. There's still ways to win. There's still paths to success for everyone else, which means that they're not just going to sit back and relax once they realize, oh, I can't possibly win this one. Tim's at the top. Lottery allows people to say, hey, well, I can still get more tickets and have a chance at winning. Lucky is like, all right, well, let me submit one more record. It might be like submitting 5 more records if I get the right spin. And apologies, my dog has strong feelings about this, apparently. And then lastly, if you're looking to foster greater cohesion, there's things to try, like a shared prize ladder goal where everyone is working together towards a series of different milestones. It's basically like a team target achievement, but in the form of a competition, which tends to attract more attention and gives you the ability to set different prizes at each level, ideally prizes that are going to affect everyone. So maybe that's a coins bonus that'll be divided amongst your whole team. Maybe that's a pizza party once you hit your sales goal. It could be anything, but having things where people are not necessarily competing against each other, but as a group can be a great way to help with that. And also custom teams. That means that you can pair people together who wouldn't ordinarily work together. So reasons to do that might be putting junior and senior members together, and then the more junior members can learn from the more senior members, and it evens the playing field a little bit. And also teams that mix members from different departments who wouldn't ordinarily work together. We internally had a Shark Week competition that did this just this month. It was a lot of fun because you had, you know, our customer success team and our sales team and our marketing team all doing what they could to generate new leads. And we all got to see a little bit more of our processes and what other people are doing throughout the day. It's a good way to get that to get that community spirit back in if people have become a little bit siloed. So these are all additional goals that you might want to keep in mind for your competition beyond just, I want this KPI to go up by this much. So let's put it all together and look at an idea for a sample competition plan for an upcoming quarter. So we're going to look at some long runners and then a few different things we can do to increase interest throughout the months and weeks. So for the quarter, we could do a shared prize ladder goal. That's going to be on something that's really top of the funnel, like revenue. Hey, we just need to hit, you know, $100,000 in revenue this month. And here it is. Along the way, you can have different goals. You can have your, we're halfway there. Probably that doesn't have a prize, but then you could have your goal at 100% target completion, and then maybe a stretch goal. So you could say, hey, we're going to do coins once we hit our main goal. And then if we do, you know, 125% target completion, we'll do something extra. We'll do a party. We'll do more coins. There's a reason to keep pushing, even if we close this target right away. Then month by month, we're going to look at how to encourage those mid-funnel actions that take you to your revenue goals. So maybe you want to look at some of those records that take a little bit longer to get in. Maybe a customer demo, maybe a final quote sent, things like that, and have that split out in a way so that you're appealing to your highly competitive killers with a bracket, where you can have people slowly see who is the top converter on maybe quotes to sales. That is another place you could go, like middle to the end of the sales funnel. And then pair that with a lottery competition on the same metric. The reason for that is it tends to be a little bit discouraging once you're out of the bracket. But if you know that you're going to be added to the lottery competition when you fall out, all of that work still means something. It's still going towards tickets to get a chance at winning a prize. And then throughout your quarter, throughout your month, have a regular schedule of blitzes. Maybe you have, you know, on Tuesday or Wednesday, like I mentioned, some weekly team blitzes, probably on some early funnel activity, either calls or some other way of reaching out to generate leads, so that everyone's working in unison, and just making sure that you still have that pipeline coming in. And then spice it up with one third week competition, maybe a 3-day gift swap or something else that involves a little bit more gameplay. And that one can really be something new each time. It's probably better if it's something a little bit different each month, so that it feels fresh, it feels different. And that's just anything you need to prioritize. So something you're falling a little bit behind on, or something that you know that you're going to, maybe you know you're going to need to generate a lot of leads this month in order for a, uh, a closure initiative next month. That's where you put in those individual goals for your third week, um, fancy competition. In this case, I'm saying gift swap, but it could be lucky. Anything that you're just going to make a slightly bigger deal out of is great. So this gives you a way of breaking down your goals in a way that is going to keep people involved, and they see the progression. They see that, okay, we have these individual drives to get started with our work. Then it's being tracked, it's being rewarded throughout the months, and building towards your quarterly goal, which is shared throughout the whole company. So this is a really nice design pattern to use. I'm not saying that this is what you're exactly going to do every quarter, but thinking about those ideas, thinking about how do you make sure that people are keeping their longer term goals in mind while also pushing out those earlier foundational tasks that they need to in order to get to the opportunities that they need. And finding ways to mix it up between different teams, to mix up playing styles, that you're keeping all of your different player types involved. That is something that's really going to make your gamification program dynamic and fun, and part of your management style, and part of the ethos of your company, that you're using positivity, you're using fun, you're using community in order to reach these goals, and making your workplace somewhere that people really want to be. So happy 2025. I hope this was helpful and gives you some ideas for your first few months and your first quarter. Go get them. And at this point, I'm going to check in and see if there are any questions in the chat. Well, thank you all so much for joining, and we hope that you will come along. We're going to be holding these monthly, so there will be new topics and new deep dives that we can get into. If you have any suggestions for topics, some high-level gamification questions that you would like addressed, we hope that you'll reach out and tell us. This one's intended to just get you started thinking about gamification and motivation at a more high level. And I hope that you've gotten some inspiration here today.